Hey everyone, welcome to the Blank Pages podcast. I'm Evan, and I do this podcast every month with my father, Terry. On Blank Pages, we talk about interesting topics each month from the angle of philosophy, research, and from our own generational perspectives, with the goal of providing insight and meaningful action each month to each of you. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy the episode.
Well, it's good to see you, Dad. This episode's a little bit different.
This is a special one. We're actually in person. We're live and in person.
It's not AI, I swear.
not.
Look,
See?
see?
It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, for those listening or watching, if you're listening, this is an in-person episode where I'm visiting the United States right now. So it's good to be back, spending some time with
We even have the pillow that says home sweet.
home sweet home. To visit family, to visit friends. So it's very nice, very important. And we thought we would do this episode live in person. We're gonna be trying out some video elements. So if you're interested in watching kind of the video stuff, we might have some videos for you coming soon. We'll keep you posted. But so Dad, what are we talking about?
So today we're talking about the relationship between comfort zone and growth.
Well, I feel like I could talk about this for hours. And what's funny is this kind of came up, funny enough, on over a beer. So we were having a beer the other day. We were talking about it, and we said, "That's all great ideas, dude. This would make a great episode for a podcast." So,
Yeah, we were at the local watering hole in Ashland where it's just like Cheers, walk in, they know my name. So
yep. So, when we say comfort zone versus growth, I think I know what I think of when I think of those things, but what does that mean to you? What does comfort zone and growth mean to you?
Well, comfort zone, I think, is a very interesting term in that from a external, when people talk about it in our society, they say, you need to get outside your comfort zone, you need to grow. But as an individual, comfort zones can be a really good thing. We don't want to always be outside our comfort zone. That life would be extremely stressful. Sure. So comfort zones can be your home, your faith, your church, or your synagogue, wherever. It can be being with family. It can be reading your favorite book or doing your favorite activity. There's a lot of things that bring us peace and relaxation and are important. So comfort zone is an important component of our life. On the other side of it, there's the growth component of it. And the expression about always wanting to be outside, you need to push outside the comfort zone. There's truth to that, because if you always stay within your comfort zone, you're always doing basically the same thing. For some people that may be great. And if we personally have always wanted to grow, to keep experiencing, to doing new things. So I think they are related to one another. I don't see it as a binary that's one or the other. I think there's a real symbiotic relationship between the two of them.
Yeah, when we started talking about this, I really resonated with the fact that at least, growing up, I was kind of almost instructed that you always want to be pushing yourself and going outside of your comfort zone because it's uncomfortable, but that's where you learn the most. You'll grow as a person. And that was almost, at least when I learned, that was kind of idealized, or put that kind of state of being was almost to be constantly sought after. And if you spend too long in the comfort zone, it can almost feel like a negative thing, where people will be like, well, how are you pushing yourself? What are you working on? What are you pursuing? And if you're just kind of living your life in your comfort zone, whether that's having your routine with your partner, maybe doing some local stuff in your community, but you're not growing, it's almost seen as like laziness or a waste of time. And, even in my own personal life, that's something that even today I still struggle with, this almost fight between the two. But you said something there, which is that they're symbiotic a little bit. So what does that look like for you? Because I know I'm still trying to find that balance between the two.
But before I answer that question, you're talking about society. So there is a bias, at least in our side here in the US, that towards growth. that everything you said, that if you're not growing, that somehow connotations of not doing it tend to be negative. And certainly there are situations where within yourself, you can use your comfort zone almost as a crutch or as an excuse or as a almost fear not to try to grow. Because you get so comfortable, you get so worried about stepping outside of what you know that it holds you back. So, I had said earlier, comfort zone has many positive attributes. It can, at an individual level, also hold you back from growing and being afraid to take on new things. And then you asked me, okay, I'm sorry, remind me the question because I said I'd answer.
This actually does relate to your question, or my question, and also what you said, which was kind of the symbiotic nature. It's almost that all of one of these states is not. It could be inherently unhealthy, right? If if you stay too long in your comfort zone and you never have moments of growth, you almost might stagnate a little bit as a person. But the flip side of that is true if you spend too long in this kind of growth period, which personally I have found myself in a lot recently. It's high stress, there's anxiety, there's burnout, and there's all these other things. So this goes back to my question, which was, how do you balance the two? What does that look like in your own personal life in terms of managing comfort zone and growth, especially in this kind of new journey in your own life?
So in terms of growth, it's important to focus on what are you trying to grow as? What are there certain goals and things you have, or are you just growing for the sake of growing? So you can certainly you can fill your life up with many things. Say, well, I'm growing, and scheduling yourself to that and never stop. That you're always chasing the next thing. The question is that are you happy? Are you ever giving yourself a chance to enjoy the moment? What are you foregoing things in this chase for growth? So what is the purpose of it? So I would say it's when you think about growth, kind of like what are your values? We've talked about some past podcasts. What are your values? What's important to you? And how does growth fit into all this? So I would say in terms of that, that's where the balance comes in, is that comfort zones are fine. They are part of your growth journey. Just always trying to grow all the time, similarly to just staying in the comfort zone all the time, is an extreme in that spectrum between the comfort zones and growth.
I guess I have another, and I'm hitting you with a lot of questions, but I'm curious, why, especially in the West, do you think we tend to focus so much? We almost value growth and almost deprioritize the comfort zone, or there's a bit of a disparity and there's not this, balance. And, I think my thought on this is that, especially coming from a country like the United States, there's a lot of phrases for it, but the American dream, the self-made man or woman, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, which funny enough, that's not what that means, but it kind of got turned into this phrase of like the hardworking person. And I think that that's what led to this high value on people who are constantly grinding, putting themselves in. This is a little bit, I could skew into a different territory, but people were on paper putting themselves in kind of this growth position all the time. So they're always in growth. They're always working towards a business or a hobby or projects or other things. And the people who are maybe in the comfort zone or the comfort space, kind of are almost a little bit the antithesis of that kind of American culture of the self-made person or the grind. But that's just kind of my thought. I don't know.
I agree. I think it's just inherent in our culture about achieving, moving forward. Just that's the very nature of the American culture. And so I would like to turn and talk about this kind of conceptually of comfort zone.
Sure.
And let's talk about it personally. Let's share some stories about our own experiences in comfort zone and growth. So I'm going to start with you.
I think of a lot of examples. I'll give an example from university when I could think of where I First, I was in both the comfort zone, but then I transitioned to a period of growth. So a lot of my early days in university were following in the comfort zone. The degree I chose to study was kind of similar to what I had known. It was what, family, my older brother was doing. And I was like, well, I'm good enough at it. I'll just go that path. I didn't really push myself outside in terms of like sports or other activities. I kind of just followed the general path. And it wasn't until about halfway through my university career where I decided to do something entirely on my own, which was join a fraternal social group. And from there, really push myself in a new way. It was uncharted territory for me. I know you had been in one where you were in university, but for me, it was like, I don't have a blueprint for this. And it was a growth experience. It pushed me into not only new social experiences, but also new leadership experience as well. And there was rapid growth where I had to take on a lot of responsibility. I suddenly found myself in charge of a semi-large organization, managing lots of other, young adult men and overseeing that. And, if it wasn't for stepping out of the comfort zone of the path I kind of knew, I don't think I would have had those experiences, but I think I needed both in tandem. I think a more recent example was up until last year, I was very much in my comfort zone with my old job. I was good at it. I was able to work, not even, not even a whole 40 hours a week to get my job done. I was paid well. I was living comfortably and I kind of had all of my needs and a lot of my wants met. And I basically started to look at, well, what else do I want out of my life? And that's when I started to, I think it was the waning of the comfort zone and kind of waxing, if we're talking about moons, into the idea of growth. And that was when I started looking at shifting my career, shifting my life personally overseas, and all of these other things. And now I would say I'm still in a period of growth because I'm in a new place and doing all these things. But what I wanted to highlight with all of this was I needed the comfort zone to then step into the period of growth. It wasn't like I was just in growth, in growth, in growth. It always started, I was in a comfort zone. And then over time, I took steps and slowly transitioned to opportunities and periods for growth. And it was really important. I almost feel like you need one to have the other in that regard. And eventually I'm sure in the near future, I'm going to return back to a period of comfort zone for a little while and the cycle will continue. But what about you? Do you have any examples of comfort zone and growth?
So, yes, I do. Thinking about that, the example I would use is when I decided to go for my executive MBA in my late 40s. It's at a point in my career where I was feeling stagnant at work, career-wise. I had been doing a certain job and growing in that job and taking on different responsibilities, but I didn't really feel like I had the skill sets that went with the job I was doing, that I was doing the job I had more so with instinct rather than training. And I was also thinking at that point, well, maybe someday I might want to go into consulting or start my own business. And do I have the discipline and training to do that? So I already had a master's degree. I had a master's degree in public administration, but I decided in my late 40s to go for an MBA. And talk about going outside my comfort zone. So here it was a couple of years before your brother was going to go off to college. And so I decided to make this big investment in myself to do this, which was scary in a way, because I'm thinking I should stay within my comfort zone of being a dad, taking care of my kids, not focus on myself. I started my MBA program, and a month after I started the program, I changed jobs. And then during my MBA program, I changed jobs yet again. So I had 3 different jobs in the course of 18 months of my MBA program. So it was very scary because I was going back to school. I hadn't been in school since I had been in my mid-20s. So it'd been close to 25 years since I'd been to school. I was having to learn again. I had to spend weekends every other weekend going to classes. I had homework during the week. So it was a lot outside the comfort zone in that regard. Now, at the same time, though, what elements of my comfort zone were there that allowed me to be successful and to get through this was I had you all, I had, your mom, I had the comfort of family and home life just that supported me in this journey, where there was many times where I was like, how am I going to balance all this? And I had the comfort of knowing you all were there to to back me up, to support me, pick up some of the slack if I can do things. So, but certainly that was a major growth experience, and I learned so much from it. It changed how I thought about my current job. To this day, the things I learned in that program have influenced me both personally and professionally. So, but it was a major growth change for me.
So I have two questions for you. Did you feel like, I think you alluded to this, but before you made that decision, you were kind of in a comfort zone at that point. You were good at your job, and you were kind of going through the motions. You were effective at it, and then there was that switch over to this period of growth. Is that kind of an accurate representation of kind of what the situation looked like?
Yeah, I mean, I was, late 40s, certain point in my career. I mean, as I said, I ended up changing jobs after I started the program. So in my mind, I was thinking about kind of what's the next thing? What am I going to do next in my career? The additional education, the ability to give myself opportunity to not only stay on the current career path I was, but maybe think about starting my own business in particular. Did I have that kind of core training to support what I did intuitively? So, it was just one of those moments where I felt this was the time. If I wasn't going to do it now, I was never going to do it.
To purposefully choose to step into this period of growth versus just staying exactly where you were. How did you feel after you went through that rapid period of growth? Not only were you in school again, but you changed jobs several times. When the dust settled, as it were, how did you feel after that? Did you feel like your comfort zone had evolved, that you were able to handle more things as a result of going through this growth period?
I was very thankful I had done it. It was life-changing. Beyond what I learned academically, just the experience of having an executive coach, having to learn to rethink what was important, being challenged on a lot of things professionally and personally about myself as part of the program. Truly was a game changer. And the thing that was, to your question, when I was done with it, it redefined my comfort zone, at least in terms of my professional comfort zone as well, because now all of a sudden I felt more grounded in things that I was doing. I had not only kind of my intuitive sense from it, I also learned new ways to look at things, which I had not previously had. So different perspectives, different skill sets. So I had the academic learning, I had the professional growth, personal growth, and taking all that. It really was an eye opener. So yeah, definitely in terms of at least work, it changed a lot in terms of what I felt I could do. I hoped as well too that this is the reason I did it, but certainly especially with the older brother starting college about a year and a half or so after I finished my program, thereafter, was that I was showing you all, when we talked about education, both of you and the importance of education, you could see me later in life going back and doing continual learning, and never too old to learn. And that would hopefully, set a good example for both of you that, I'm just talking, I'm doing it, and I'm doing it too. I'm going to school and I'm going for advanced education. I'm trying to continue to better myself and grow.
It kind of feels like a lot of what we're talking about is this idea that there is this almost like symbiotic, give and take relationship between comfort zone and growth, because what we're both starting to highlight, and I can speak from my own experience, that, after moving abroad, the idea of moving to another country, whether it would be back to the US or somewhere else, doesn't feel nearly as scary now. It would just be more about the logistics of it all. But that's because, I went through this experience. I know what it looks like. I went through this period of growth, and I expanded and evolved my comfort zone. Same thing with you. I know when you lost your job in 2020, it was a thing where you've already been through a period of influx and instability previously in your life, where you changed jobs a lot, or you were back in school. Didn't mean it was easy, but you had some experience that has expanded that comfort zone a little bit, and you kind of are able to maybe approach it more confidently versus when it's your first time doing it. It's terrifying to say the least.
So I'm glad you brought up about your move, because when you talked about your change, you mentioned college. I thought you were going to talk about the fact that why you're not always sitting here next to me when you do these things. That was kind of outside the comfort zone.
Just a little
So
bit.
why don't you talk about that? I mean, I know I'd like to hear that.
Yeah.
More about, and you have talked about this on podcast, but talk about going outside the comfort zone.
Yeah.
You've talked about, in the past, how you came to that decision, but just talk us through a little bit about the change as it happened and you were going through it.
Yeah. I mean,
And you're still going through
I think it was, just for anyone curious, I just had to do my taxes today and figure out all that fun stuff, and wasn't that bad. But, but again, that's, 6 months ago, if you told me, oh, you're going to have to figure out your taxes for US and abroad, I'd be like, oh my God. Or, 6 months ago, when I had to move pets abroad, or I had to figure out all of these other various components, it all felt very overwhelming. And now what it feels like is that I went through the process and had to, it taught me a lot of valuable skills. I had to go outside of the comfort zone and learn a lot of information about this change in my life moving abroad. And, sometimes that meant surrounding myself with experts or groups of people who were either a couple of steps ahead of me or who specialized in the thing that I needed, getting a visa, for example. I worked with an expert on that. And by doing so, it reinforced the fact that if I take on challenging things in my life, I know through one way or another, whether it's on my own or with support and guidance, that I can accomplish challenging and incredible things. Moving abroad was one of those things where, I wanted to have this experience to put myself in a growth state where I'm in a new country. I have to meet new people. I may be traveling more. I'm exposing my personal and professional network to different groups of people. I'm trying to learn a new language. And these are all basically just seed beds for periods of growth. Some of them you'll maybe spend a little bit more time and energy on. Others you might spend less on, but they're all opportunities for growth. And that was where I felt 6 months ago, where I wanted my life to be, is I wanted to put myself in this situation where I'm expanding all avenues of my life, and, meet people from all over the world. And yes, I am still going through that growth period.
Well, let's talk about, so you talked about the growth side of it. Let's talk about the comfort zone.
Sure.
Which you have talked about in past podcasts and also on your YouTube video, Evan the Wayfarer.
Yeah.
So plug there, subscribe. But you've talked about this. So you went outside your comfort zone in terms of you left the country you knew to a country you didn't know, to a city you didn't know, to learning a language that you didn't really know that much, to leaving friends behind to make new friends.
The family behind.
To changing job to new job. So talk about comfort zone. You blew it all up.
Yeah.
So you talk about the growth side of this. Talk about the comfort zone side of this. Both what you left behind. I know you've talked in the past about how that was challenging at times. And I remember the story you told, like when your mom left after you moved in, you realized you were there. But we'll talk about, what that felt like. And talk about comfort zone you left behind and kind of what your comfort zone looks like today.
So the comfort zone I left behind was one where I felt comfortable with what I knew. And this is going to be, I'll try not to be too vague on this, but yeah, I felt comfortable with exactly what I knew. But the moment you threw hurdles my way, whether it was something with work or a complication in a relationship or something, I don't know, with the local government, I had to do something or other. There was definitely a lot of stress associated with that. And I would say, I think it's easier to talk about this in the realm of what's changed is I feel much more adaptable to whatever comes my way now. And most at most aspects of my life, whether it's something with the Spanish government or something with the US government, and I don't mean politics, but like something related to like me as a person living there, I feel confident that I can get the answers I need. I feel that even in a situation where maybe I don't know the language all that well, that I can still communicate, that I can get better. I just feel more flexible. So when stressors and things inevitably come up, that I can adapt to them well and do so in an emotional state that's well regulated to the most part. Doesn't mean I don't feel stressed, but I think that's the big difference. Whereas before, I was comfortable in maybe a smaller bubble, and my bubble has expanded pretty massively to what I'm okay with and what I know that I can handle, even if I don't immediately have all the information. I think that's the biggest difference, because you're right. I kind of did blow it all up in terms of all aspects of my life. And now that the dust has started to settle, I'm a lot more comfortable with many things. Now, I will say, because I went through such a rapid and major shift in my life, it has taken me, and is still taking me, time to come back to a place where I would say I'm operating more regularly in a comfort zone. I think I still find myself a lot in this kind of growth phase and mindset, which is challenging because, there's this, I might say for a different podcast episode, but when you blow your life up that much, you are, there's almost this idea of, well, there's so many opportunities for growth, I should do all of them. And I think as a result of that, you almost kind of abandon your comfort zone a little bit, and those moments of comfort and just stability, to constantly seek out the next thing. So I'm still figuring that out a little bit. And that's become a bigger priority because as we said earlier, it's a bit symbiotic. So you need both. And just because I could be more comfortable with things doesn't mean that I'm necessarily in my comfort zone all the time, especially living abroad.
So you said about your comfort zone expanding. So you have, comfort zone of friends, family here, and you're back here visiting. You've seen a lot of your friends. You've seen family, and you have new friends in Malaga, the ones who just cheered you on when you ran your half marathon.
Yeah.
Signs for you. We met many of them when we visited. You have the comfort zone now. Maybe you're still working on it, but you're now dual language, bilingual, working on it. So you're comfortable with that. You just said adaptability, you're dealing with different government structures, or your videos about showing how you get around on the trains and doing all that. So is it fair to say your comfort zone has now gone much larger than it was before you left?
Absolutely. I mean, if I went a year ago before I left, even a little further back, like maybe not like 15 months ago, the person I am today and what I feel, not just that I can that I can overcome or adapt to, wildly different. And I think, the benefit of when you step outside your comfort zone is you kind of prove to yourself, you give yourself confirmation and evidence that supports that you are capable of things, whether it's going back to school in your 40s and getting a degree, changing jobs, raising a family, doing all of that, or moving abroad, shifting career tracks, learning a language. You kind of prove to yourself that you are capable of a lot of things, and it allows you to, I think, build that confidence. And so, yes, to answer your question, 100%.
We're going to turn to our viewers because we always like to finish our podcasts with the so what moment. So what are our takeaways from this? Yes. Going to segue right into what Evan just talked about, which is the idea of the fact of an expanding comfort zone. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things we posed beginning was there's comfort zone, there was growth, there was a relationship between the two. We've talked here about how it can swing between being in your comfort zone to going to fully aggressive growth to then kind of coming back to a new and redefined comfort zone. So I think that's one of the things we want to leave people, listeners with, we've talked about, is this idea that it isn't a binary choice. It isn't like either be in your comfort zone or you have to grow. You have to get outside your comfort zone and grow. So staying in the comfort zone is a bad thing. What we're saying here is certainly it is scary to a lot of times get outside that comfort zone because it's what you don't know, the unknown. And as human beings, we all like to be known. We don't like, a lot of us don't like surprise. We don't like that uncertainty on the out. And it can be challenging and difficult to grow. But it also provides an opportunity to create a new comfort zone. And as you just said, it creates you to be able to be more adaptable, to have new experiences, to make new connections, new relationships. So there's a lot of positives. So we talk about that. And I wanted to bring in here because it's come up in a lot of people my own age I've spoken with. I think I mentioned last podcast, which is about the idea of retirement. And people go, I just don't know what I do with myself because I know what they're in many ways saying is, I know my comfort zone now. My comfort zone is my career, my status. It's what I do every day. I have a routine. I wake up every day. I know what Mondays through 9 to 5 is, and Monday through Friday. And I know when I retired, that was challenging. It's like, what's structure look like? And that can be scary, or thinking you don't have purpose, or what do I do with myself? So, but it's also an opportunity for growth. And it's also an opportunity to do things that you haven't done in the past. It's an opportunity to, again, redefine what your comfort zone looks like. It may not look exactly like it does now. Maybe you do consulting, or maybe you find volunteer work, or you do other things. So, I think the idea here is that growth is important no matter what age you are. It gives you the ability to stay fresh, be creative, to feel like your purpose. And it also gives you an opportunity to continue to build on that comfort zone and to, or change your comfort zone. Some things may no longer be part of your comfort zone, but new things are. So, I guess that's one of the takeaways I would leave people with in terms of when we talk about comfort zone and growth. And what would you give people as your takeaway?
I think to emphasize what you said about it's not one or the other. I see it almost as a cycle, and you can't have one without the other. To have periods in your life where you grow and step into periods of where you're uncomfortable, you need a space or a status where you feel this comfort zone in your life. So it is one and the other. You need your comfort zone and what you're okay with to have those periods of growth. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned from not only this discussion, but also in the past 6 months, is that they're both healthy for you. And it's not what is better than the other, especially in Western culture, is that it is perfectly normal and healthy to be in a period where you're within your comfort zone, your stress is lower, your routine, the things you're good at. Maybe you're spending time raising your family, or you're really just, doing a good job at your career, but you're not necessarily putting yourself into these periods or projects of growth. And then the flip side is when you're ready, when you decide to get to that place where you want to, the growth helps you, as you said, redefine what you're comfortable with. I think it builds a lot of confidence in yourself. Whether you succeed or fail in those periods of growth, it shows, your own sense of self, that you're willing to try things, that you're willing to grow, whether it's personally, professionally, in relationships and beyond, and or spiritually. And I think that is, something that when you maybe come to the end of that period of growth, you have this newfound sense of understanding about yourself. You feel more confident in yourself, and you step into this new period of comfort with what you're comfortable with, and what you're able to overcome. So, yeah, I think that's kind of my takeaway for this episode.
I think that's a perfect place to end it.
I think so. We will be likely uploading this to YouTube. If you do not see it on YouTube at some point, then we did not upload it to YouTube. But the plan is to, and yeah, as I said, in the future, we might be trying out some other video related mediums to give you guys different ways to listen, and so you can see us. Unfortunately, We probably won't have too many episodes like this where they're in person, at least for right now. But we'll definitely be getting some videos to share with all of you. But as always, we'll leave some links in the description. If you, whether you want to check out my YouTube or want to check out what my dad's doing for his consulting business. And yeah, as always, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Blank Pages podcast. If you like what you saw, leave us a like and subscribe on YouTube, or if you're on any other podcast platform, feel free to leave us a rating as it really helps out a lot. Stay tuned for our monthly drop, and if you're interested, we even have a newsletter that you can sign up for so you never miss an episode. Thanks so much for listening.